Hey everyone, what's up? I'm Jack, this is Jill, and we're the Cynical Siblings. Today we're doing an analysis of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Season 1, Episode 1, New World Order.
We're going to be talking about legacy and especially the question, what does it mean to be Captain America? What are you drinking?
I am drinking tea.
That's not wine.
It is not wine, it is tea.
Oh,
Earl Grey. Hot.
of course.
What are you drinking?
Coffee. Just coffee.
What? It's just coffee?
Yeah, I mean, there's half and half.
Oh, there you go, it's coffee with half and half. That sounds terrible. Okay, so...
Anyway.
What does it mean to be Captain America, and why are we talking about that?
Yeah. Why don't you frame why we're talking about it?
I think that that's what this series is going to be about. I think they made it really clear that the question is, who's the next Captain America? At the very end of this first episode, they reveal a new Captain America, who is neither Sam Wilson nor Bucky Barnes, and that's a problem, because we all know, right, we all know it should be one of those two, right? But it's neither of them, and that is a nice little reveal at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way... Okay, I hate the way that they introduced him, but
right.
I like the intentionality around the way that they introduced him to evoke the emotional response I had and that I understand lots of people are having, which is to say, like, this guy comes out of nowhere. We don't know who got to ordain him as Captain America. We didn't get to connect with him during training, during the throwing himself on a grenade.
Which is what Steve Rogers does in the first Captain America movie, where he kind of proves who he is when he throws himself on a grenade, which turns out not to be a real grenade, but he doesn't know that at the time.
Right, or taking the flag down.
Oh, yeah.
Or, we don't see him in any of those, that whoever this John Walker guy is, we don't see him in any of those rules. We just see him, a bunch of, politicians give a speech about how we need a symbol. So here is this cardboard cutout with a very strong chin. And I
do like his costume.
The costume was...
he's got that stylized star A thing on his forehead that I thought was kind of cool looking.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good... I think it's a good design. I like it.
It seems a little costumey more than a little more, uniformy.
Okay. But all of Captain America's uniforms, if you want to call them that, have been very costumey.
Yeah, I feel like they were less costumey in the last few
we can debate that point, but I like the design.
They may have just been less clean. I can't remember. Anyway, so I just thought it was interesting that folks are not okay with this new Captain America. You said what? What's trending? What's the hashtag?
Not my Captain America.
Yeah, not my Captain America. And I think that's really interesting, actually, because there's actually, I think, a strong parallel between John Walker and Steve Rogers, in that when Steve Rogers first became Captain America, he was pretty much just on stage to sell war bonds.
Right.
I mean, we see that whole little montage of how many times he punches out Hitler on stage and the crowd goes wild, and then he goes into the USO, actually on the front lines, and all the actual soldiers are like, nah, dude, nah.
Right, yeah.
So I feel like actually John Walker is coming from a really similar place in that way. Like, he is just walking out as some politician assigned symbol. And we're all having that boo, hiss reaction, which I just thought was well done on their part, and really interesting for how they're framing things.
Now, of course, John Walker is a character from the comic books, and he does in the comic books at one point take on the role of Captain America and is not terribly successful at it at the time. He goes on to become another superhero, and we can cover the comic book history of John Walker if we want. I don't know exactly what they're doing with the character in the MCU, and I'm hesitant to say too much because in the previous series, Agatha Harkness, whose character I do know really well, they did a lot of very strange different things with the character that I was not really prepared for. So I'm hesitant to be like, oh, John Walker, this is what they're going to do, or this is what they've done in the past. I just kind of want to see what a little bit more of what they do with the character. But I do like the way that they present him at the end, because at the beginning, Sam Wilson has this whole speech that he doesn't believe that anyone really can take up the shield except for Steve Rogers. This was his shield. This was his message. This was his superhero. His superhero thing, and no one else can really be that or do that. And he gives it to the Smithsonian. They put it in a case. He said his little piece, and then the government's like, yeah, no, never mind. We're gonna do things our way. And I like the way that they did that, and I like the way that they revealed it. Yeah, I thought that was all really good.
I agree completely. And this is all laying the framework for how legacy, I think, is going to show up in this phase of the MCU. WandaVision touched on a few of these themes lightly, especially with Monica Rambeau, where after the blip, then what? But it seems like they're framing it much more strongly for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And there's really this sense with Sam giving that speech at the Smithsonian and Rhodey being at the front of the audience, and then the two of them taking a walk. It really is the feeling of Iron Man and Captain America.
Yes, I like that parallel a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not there anymore.
Right, they're not there, but Rhodey and Sam are there. So you have this. You do have this sense of lineage, and you do have this sense of legacy of the torch has been passed to War Machine and Falcon, and you do start to get that sense. And Rhodey asks Sam, like, why didn't you take up the mantle? So I liked that conversation. I really felt like it just really took the Tony Stark, Steve Rogers stories that we've been following and did create a lineage between Rhodey and Sam. And I really do appreciate that they had that little note in there. I thought that was really good.
Well, I mean, props to the MCU. They've gotten so good at putting so much into a relatively simple scene. Let's do a short speech giving this shield to the Smithsonian. All of this other character development and background and thematic details are happening at the same time. And, just props to the MCU for doing those pieces quite often. They get a lot into 49 minutes.
They do. I agree. And I really did appreciate that sense that the torch was passed on to these characters. And then, there's this sense that Sam's wrestling with the idea that he's not ready to be Captain America. You definitely get the sense that, the first thing that he says is, this shield feels like someone else's. So, after Steve Rogers passes the shield to Sam, he's like, this doesn't feel like it's mine. And I mean, like, how do you say, yeah, I'm worthy to be Captain America? Like, that's a hard thing, I think, to say. In fact, I would imagine, fan speculation, but I would imagine that the reason why Steve Rogers would decide to give it to Sam is because you really want to give it to someone who isn't sure that they are Captain America. If you know you're Captain America, you're probably not Captain America. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's true.
Well, there was always a humility about Steve Rogers.
Right.
Which actually brings me back to John Walker. I am a little bit curious. Obviously, the writers of this series can kind of go any which way that they want with the U.S. agent, but which just so the audience knows is John Walker's other superhero name in the Marvel comic series. He becomes U.S. agent. Yeah. Yeah, but can you give me a rundown of what his character has been in the comics, just in broad strokes?
Yeah, in really broad strokes. He was sort of a overzealous patriot that that did not understand the role of Captain America and would go too far in terms of violence and nationalism sometimes. Now, he does eventually become a real hero in line with Captain America as his character develops. He's got a good character development arc throughout the Marvel Comics series, but that is how he starts. He is a overzealous, nationalistic person who is sort of the dark side of Captain America in some ways, where Captain America believes in the idealism and believes in the meaning of what it is to be an American. You know, John Walker started out much more being just an American zealot, and so that's kind of how he starts. And I'm assuming they're going to do something like that with this series. I'm just not clear how or why or when or what.
Yeah, it makes me think about the opportunities that the MCU has to lean into their comic book habit of making social commentary. So I'm thinking specifically about years ago when in the comics they killed Captain America.
Right.
And, it was a social and political statement. And then when they brought Captain America back over the last decade, I think that they've been very careful about how they frame his character. I'm wondering, so they haven't really, if you analyze it, I think you can see their perspective on this character, but they also haven't done any hugely political stunts like the way that they killed Captain America in the comics a number of years ago. So I'm wondering if actually this is an opportunity for them to lean more into some commentary by creating this really clear juxtaposition between Sam and John Walker. I'm not sure if they're gonna go there.
I don't know exactly what their intentions are. Yeah, they absolutely could have more commentary on those factors, on the difference between, say, patriotism and zealous nationalism. They definitely could go down that route, and I think that would be an interesting route to go down. I'd be curious to see how they frame their argument, but right now I don't know, which is why I don't want to get too steeped into the Marvel mythology around this, because I just don't know what they're doing with the character yet. I'd like to kind of give it some time to breathe, I guess, and see what they do. But I definitely think that is an option for them.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about what it means to be Captain America, and also, I think also interestingly, what does it not mean to be Captain America?
Yeah, I think that when we're having a conversation about legacy and we're trying to decide why it is that one person should get the shield and why it is someone else shouldn't get the shield, I think that's a good question. What is it to be Captain America? What is it that Steve Rogers did that makes us go, okay, this guy is in Steve's lineage, but this guy is not? What is it about that character that helps us make that decision? Why is everyone right away doing hashtag not my Captain America? So what does it mean to be Captain America? Who is Captain America? When you think of Captain America, what do you think of the character?
I remember in Civil War, I was a little bit surprised that Steve Rogers was against the Sokovian Accords and Tony Stark was for it. And I liked the way that they framed that argument. I see why they went in that direction, and I also see how I've been raised around the concept of patriotism, which has often wandered over into nationalism in different ways. But I see how that made me think too simply about the issue. I just assumed that the American government said, hey, we, as a security risk, we need to register these people. And Steve Rogers would be like, yes, protect America. And instead, he was very much more for freedom.
Right.
Which, it's a little bit complicated to talk about right now in a context where we're so divided socially, politically, at this moment, physically, because no one's going anywhere. But, it's a little bit complicated to talk about things without a lot of the words that we might use, like just having tons of context and meaning that we don't want them to, but because of our social context, they just do right now. So I also wanted to just put that caveat out there that, like, if I say that Steve Rogers' approach to no, folks need the freedom, they don't need to register, is is a somewhat conservative idea, or at least a small government idea, um, that has, I think it is, and I don't want to get that conflated with talking points either. So I do feel like it's tough to talk about this.
I think that's fair. I think that we've highly politicized everything, and I don't want to see my comic book movies get, or my comic book TV shows get highly politicized, and I think it's really easy to go down that route, especially if we start talking about the difference between patriotism and nationalism, where the dividing line is, what's good, what's bad. I don't really want to necessarily have to go down that route, but I do agree that in general, Captain America is not the character who follows orders per se. He does, but he's also his own self actualized individual. He does have his own autonomy and authority, and so he also is a character that believes very much in American idealism, which is, freedom, independence, and all of those concepts, along with a strong sense of community and a sense of shared responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that when you look at something like Civil War, you see that Captain America as a symbol is not just the guy who's going to follow orders, but he's also the guy that's going to figure out, what do the orders mean? Mm-hmm. And are they relevant to American culture? And if so, how so? And if they're going to hurt people, why would I do that? So I think that this is someone who really doesn't just parrot American ideology, but thinks about it, tries to figure out how to use American ideology in a way that is helpful and beneficial to the community and to the society. And that, when you've got this other character, John Walker, that just shows up out of nowhere, you have no idea. Does he really believe in American values? Does he know how to apply them? Does he make sure that those American values are applied to everyone? Does he make sure that they're fair? We don't know that about this character in this TV series. So, I think that, figuring out who Captain America is helps us figure out why it is that, we see some rando show up mm-hmm. with the shield and a Captain America-esque uniform on, and we're like, no. Right, that's not okay. That's not good enough anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe that worked in World War II, but nowadays we need to know that the person that's going to do this really lives into these values, really tries his best to be, the person that makes sure that, freedom and independence are something that's there for everyone in a very real way. And that is, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think you said, while you were talking a minute ago about Steve Rogers doesn't just follow orders, I think something kind of fell into place in my head a little bit, which is to say that it's very clear that Steve Rogers respects orders.
Yes.
And the framework that they come out of.
Right.
Which is not the same thing as following all orders. And it is a complicated topic that we don't have good discussion around right now as a culture. I just feel like it's either, stay in line and, live by this particular ideology at all times, no questions asked, context does not matter, or, none of it matters, we're all individuals, we can all do whatever we want, whenever we want. I think both of those things actually cuts down the idea of a society, personally. Whereas I feel like the way that they wrote Steve Rogers in the MCU, to your point, doesn't always follow orders, respects the chain of command, though. And also, understands that this is a community and different people are different. So I don't know quite what to say about that, except it was it is kind of an impressive tightrope, honestly, in this given culture right now, like in our social political climate.
I think though that we see, and this is why I want to see Sam Wilson at the end up with the shield. But
Yeah.
I think that we see the way that Sam's being written here that he is trying to step into that role. Whether or not he's successful or not is not relevant. Just that he's making the attempt. Where when he shows up at home, he doesn't. He's still a superhero for his sister, or he's still trying to be, and he's still trying to be a superhero for his nephews. Whether or not he's going about the right way or doing the best job at it is another issue. But he's not just trying to save the world, he's also trying to save his family's business. He's there on it's kind of like operating at two different levels. There's the national, I'm going to save everyone superhero level, and then there's just the regular everyday down to earth, my family's business is in trouble and I'm here to help. And I think that's something too that the audience can really right now in 2021 identify with. We're while they're just coming through the blip, at the same time we're going through the pandemic, and the two kind of parallel each other. And there are a lot of people trying to save a lot of businesses right now, and doing their own sort of everyday superhero stuff. So I really think that there's a lot of parallel there, and I think that's what makes this character of Sam Wilson, played by so well by Anthony Mackie here, like just such a good character, is that we really see him operating at this like high level. I'm going to take down multiple helicopters and rescue someone all at the same time, and then going like, okay, but now I need to try and get a loan to save my family's business, and struggling on that end. And you just see him operating at those two levels. And I really think that is someone who is learning how to live the American, live in America, and try to be a superhero full time, according to those high level of ideals the entire time. And so I think he should get that. I think he does deserve to get that shield at the end. But we'll see what they do with the characters through the series. But I definitely think that we're kind of seeing him walk through that path of being a superhero, not just like when you're on the battlefield, but being a superhero when you get home, and still following your ideals, and still trying to figure out how to do the right thing, even when there's not going to be an award for this at the end of the day. No one's going to be like, oh, look at what Falcon did, he saved a boat, his family's boat. Like, no one's going to do that, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that this is his family, this is his legacy, right? This is his personal legacy. Again, this is all about legacy. So living into those pieces, I think, is why it is that Steve Rogers chose him, is that this is the type of person he is.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the type of person that he is. And I think it's interesting too, what you're bringing up is the way that Sam's story has strong parallels with Steve Rogers' stories. I happen to have gone back and watched the first Captain America movie a couple of months ago, and I was struck by how easy it was for me to forget skinny Steve Rogers. Like, they spend a lot of time in that movie just building up his perspective and his history and his character. And yet when you see him through all of the other Avenger movies, it's kind of easy to forget that that's actually how Steve spent most of his life, and that how much that actually comes through in his characterization then forever after. And I think that they're demonstrating that Sam is in some similar situations where his parents struggled, but they have a house and they had the boat. And now his sister's struggling. I like the way that he can be in conflict with his sister. Like, I just think that that's good writing and good character development. That he's a superhero, and he can still, just be in conflict with his own family, in a way that isn't like, they're not tearing each other down. They're both frustrated. They both have their point to make, but they're moving through it, and also that he goes to the bank and he can't get a loan. Now, is that a matter of just the rules change, or is there some systemic racism mixed into there?
They certainly, the way the script is written, kind of imply that there's some systemic racism. Obviously, they're not gonna. It's not overt, but there is the script doesn't. To me, it sounds like they imply that a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially when Sarah says, funny how things always tighten up for us. I think that was her frustration around that. So yeah, absolutely. I think there's that piece in there.
Yeah, and they talk about it as being generational. I mean, even the guy at the bank is like, I know you've banked with us for generations.
Right.
How does that not mean anything anymore, right? Like, we're in this setting where you can bank with folks like for generations, and that just doesn't mean anything if your numbers don't add up to something that someone arbitrarily decided.
Right.
And all of those things. So I think the fact that Sam is going through those deeply personal and also systemic issues, and he's meeting the challenge with strength, but also with some humility. I think that is a strong parallel to Steve's own story back in the 40s.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but I agree. I mean, there are different types of challenges, but you see that, both characters have grown up in a situation where they have struggled.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's in Steve's case a physical struggle, his body would not have the strength that he wanted, or in Sam's case where there's more economic factors. I think in all those cases you just see a personality that is able to face a struggle without losing the identity of their idealism and their culture and their love of their family and their community.
Mm-hmm.
That's another piece too. Like these things don't break Steve and Sam. They hurt, they're hard, they're painful, but it doesn't stop them. Steve famously is the guy who can do this all day long, right? That's who he is. And I think Sam's proving to be the same character or a similar character, have that same strength.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like what they're doing with the Sam Wilson character. I really want to see him get that shield. I think,
and that loan.
Yeah, and the loan. I think he should get the loan too. What are you guys thinking? It's the Falcon. Of course he gets the loan.
Yeah.
But I do see that they're trying to show just how hard things are in this after blip world. And yeah, I really like what they're doing with the sense of legacy with this. So that's really what I have to say right now about Captain America and a sense of legacy and how it's showing up here. We did not get to crack into the character of Bucky. We should do that for a future video.
I think we're going to have plenty of opportunity to really crack into his character.
Yeah. Hopefully next week we do that. But anyways, I think I've said my piece on legacy.
So have I.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers, I guess.